Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to the I Don't Get It podcast. I'm Ashley and I'm here with my sister Lauren and Naz as always. And today we have a special guest in studio with us, and it's Chris Cupcake Strandburg. And I'm a little bit nervous and intimidated right now because he has a tablet, and it has notes for our topic today. And Chris, I don't know how comfortable you are talking about how we came up with this topic. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, I definitely think we should talk about it.
Okay, because I know at the time you were like, let's we
don't
not
have to
expose this to the world.
We don't have
and
to
then
expose
I was
everything to the world.
Yeah, because I have a tendency of doing this.
No shit, 2 podcasts, couple shows.
Well, what is the topic? I don't get
so
what.
basically we're in Mexico. I was like having an emotional day, you know, what else is new when in Mexico? And he was like, you like older guys? And I'm like, not really. I'm like, as a 29-year-old, I'm not really looking for anyone above 35. And he was like, well, I don't know if you're going to find anyone if you're looking in that like section of guys right now. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the guys that you'd like the ones that are, you know, well put together, professional, attractive, like they got the whole package, they're
not going to be ready.
Are not going to be ready to get married until they're 40, and then they're going to be looking for 30-year-olds. So if you're looking to get married in the next couple of years, you should probably start dating way up. And I still don't feel very good about this, but it's been something I thought about for the past week and a half now. So I'd like you to explain why.
And I also love that we have you here because I don't get why guys are waiting so long to commit.
Yeah.
Like there's like I date older. I date guys that are 10 years older than me, and they're still just like hanging out, throwing birthday parties for themselves.
It's like
and I'm
way
like,
more
go
fun to be with a lovely lady.
Go start a family, bro. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean
it's more fun to be?
It's more fun to be like
it
one
is.
woman. Come home, you do what she cooks, you eat, you sleep, you have sex, and like that's it.
Yeah, we never understand, you know, whenever we are like ghosted or stood up or anything like that, we don't get why would a guy rather hang out with his bros than come home, hang out with us. We talked about on the Twins podcast. We were like, all we want to do is eat with you, snuggle, and suck your dick. What's so bad about that? Why would you choose to hang out somewhere other than that place?
Right. We don't get why guys don't commit. So, Chris, we are going to throw it to you.
Luckily, I have all the answers in this report.
This is literally
Is this copy and pasted notes that you've selected from the internet, or is this an actual report?
There's some copy-paste from Google. There's some stream of consciousness down here.
Okay.
Some philosophy.
Okay.
All right, well, tell us your thoughts.
Well,
like,
first
what do
of
you
all,
think?
Ashley starts freaking out because she's like, that's my dad. Like,
Yeah.
that is gross.
She's
All I think of is-
forgetting how old our dad is.
He's
you
40,
might remember
he's 61.
Right. So, like, take a look at the show that we're watching, The Bachelorette. We've
Yeah.
got Brian on here who's 37, right, and he's single. I don't know if you have reimagined what 37 looks like, but Brian does not look like close to an old man to me. He does not look like 3 years away from being your dad.
No, he looks like Joey Fatone in my big fat Greek wedding.
That's perfect. He does.
I think I'm not going to go there. I don't know what kind of
All
drama
right,
this
yeah.
would cause in
I
this.
personally think Brian's overrated. I'm not really getting Brian in general, but continue. I see your point.
So I thought it was interesting that Rachel was like, what is wrong with this guy? You know, he's 37. And I understand that's kind of like the social norm. But from my point of view, I'm like, no, this guy gets it. Like, he has taken a lot of time to find himself, figure out who he is. And now he's starting to feel like, okay, I've kind of made all the mistakes that I need to make or whatever to learn who I am. And now I'm ready.
Okay, I stubbed my toe on my bed, and I know, like, for the rest of my life, don't walk near that bedpost. Why does it take years to learn from mistakes?
Yeah, but you're still going to stub your toe, like, on the corner of that chest of drawers right there.
God.
And you're going to stub it on in the oven, going to the kitchen. Like,
Well, Chris, what's your story? You're a good-looking guy. How old are you?
a 31.
Okay, you're 31. You're obviously a catch. You're so good-looking. You have an amazing job. Do you feel like you're not ready to settle down yet? Like, you're going to wait till you're 40 to settle down?
Well, I grew up kind of with like traditional mindset that probably be married by 25. Like, absolutely latest, I would have kids and be married by 30. And about that time of like 25, I started getting a little bit nervous because I was like under this traditional clock, right? And so there was a few years where I felt pressure just from myself and maybe not really from my family, just kind of, I guess, society that, hey, man, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you settled down yet? And then around the time I
don't know what kind of society you're living in, because the societies that I know, nobody's pressured to be married by 25 anymore.
Well, my dad was married by 24.
Well, our parents were married at 22 and 25.
So,
but that is way aged, outdated.
Well, I totally agree with that. What I'm saying is that's kind of the world that I knew. And until I really explored and like met people who were much older than me and loving life and still planning on getting married and having a family, it kind of like turned my whole world around, my expectations of what my life were. When I met 35-year-olds and 40-year-olds who had never been married, and they're like, yeah, I'm still going to settle down. I'm like, no, it's too late for you. Like, you guys are almost dead.
I think it's too late for them still.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're a walking corpse.
I mean,
Let's
as
do
long
this.
as you freeze your eggs, I guess it's an unlimited amount of time, or like
I don't
it buys
think
you
that's
10
the
years.
actual case,
Yeah.
but I think it buys you 5 years.
All right, so we're evolving.
I think if your neck is starting to sag, don't become a mom.
Oh my
No, I'm just
God.
kidding.
I know. Think about
No,
the energy level
seriously.
that you need to have a kid. Like Lauren and I can't babysit and like stand up and like play like pretend basketball for like 5 minutes without being like, can I sit down now?
All right, as much as I hate to stop this conversation right now because it's amazing, I have to talk to you guys about Beachbody On Demand because it is making my arms tight.
Oh.
Beachbody On Demand's
Naz,
like,
your arms have been looking good.
so I seriously hate my arms and the weight. I've been doing the weight training program on it, but pretty much Beachbody On Demand's this online fitness streaming service that gives you unlimited access to a wide variety of like highly effective workouts that include like yoga, weight training. They even have dance on there. And it's all personalized to meet your needs. Plus, they have like nutritional content on there so they can help you out with like meals.
Yeah.
And it's all proven to help people achieve their health and fitness goals.
Basically, if I just want to concentrate on my butt, there are programs that are just made for my butt.
Exactly. And they're all step-by-step programs, so they're so easy to follow. They have workout calendars. Like, it's literally like having a personal trainer in your phone. And they have an innovative portion control focused cooking show. And they literally just motivate you. Like, it's an entire community of people that are motivating you to be skinny, which is amazing. But Beachbody On Demand is the total package. And what's so amazing is, guys, this is a brand new service, and they already have over 1 million members.
That is really insane.
Doing
That
stuff in
says
the comfort
something.
of your own home is always
Exactly.
good.
So you
Yeah.
know that this shit is legit.
And it's on you can do it on your computer, your phone, your tablet, your TV screen.
Right. And our listeners, guys, take your phones out right now, can claim a free trial membership if you're an I Don't Get It podcast listener. All you have to do is text GET IT, GETIT, no space in between, to 303030. That's GET IT to 303030. It's a simple text message, and you'll get full access to this entire platform for free. You guys do not want to miss out on this. Like, it is summer season. It's shred season. Get your body right. And yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, let's get back to Chris now.
So, Chris, so you felt like then you suddenly found this world where everyone was just settling down later. When did that happen? Like in college, or like was it like all your guy friends weren't doing it? Like, where did this epiphany come from?
Yeah, some of my close guy friends, it was not even close to being on their radar that they would get married by that age. And that kind of, it started making me question things. In my personal life, I've noticed that I have a lot of, uncles and, aunts, family members, etc., who got married in their early to mid-20s, had kids, did the whole thing, and now they're getting divorced in their late 40s, early 50s, and then they're remarrying. So these people had sort of followed that mindset, and now they started looking around later in their marriage for other options, trying to find that person that they never fully developed when they were young. And now here they are at an advanced age, and they've started a family, and now they want a new start. They want to restart that. And this happened consistently in my personal life, that I saw this over and over again. Sometimes it happened, mutually with respect, and other times it happened in a very dramatic way that hurt a lot of people. So I thought, okay, wait, so maybe I'm not dead by 35, and maybe I can just skip the whole first marriage and wait to the second marriage. Wait till I get older, because these people are still creating good lives for themselves in their second marriages, and they still have love, and they still feel like I have my whole life ahead of me. Well, that's well and good, but I didn't want to go through that first part. I wanted to just find out who I was without starting a family at that young age. Now, is this a realistic thing to think about? Well, 100 years ago, when you were 65 and you're almost dead, we have our retirement age at like 65, right? Well, that was a convenient age because you're close to dead at that point anyways, because you kind of work until you die. Now, our generation is expected to live on average to be about 95.
What?
Yeah.
Congratulations, humanity.
Sure?
Yeah.
That's really great.
I want to die after 70.
Naz is weird. She's one of those girls that wants to die when she starts really losing her looks, and
Yeah.
it's really sad.
I just
I
think
want to
old
freak
age
out
is sad.
little kids with my age.
I went to Starbucks and there was this guy like shaking, trying to get the croissant to his mouth, and I'm like, no, thank you. Just kill me.
Naz, don't make me
Chris,
think
now
like
I have
you.
a question for you. How old were you when you signed up for the Bachelorette? So, like, if
You're a liar. You weren't there for the right reasons.
so, yeah, were you there for the wrong reason?
I was totally there to become an Instagram star.
Well, there we go. The truth comes
100%.
Yeah,
out.
Chris is the one Bachelor person, I will say, who has not sold any ads
Yeah.
on his Instagram. So he's probably the real MVP here.
You know what?
Or dumb.
To be honest, that was an interesting time in my life.
Or
And
dumb. I'm gonna go with dumb. LOL.
The look that Chris and Ashley are giving each other.
There was a glare.
I wish you guys were here right now. It's so funny.
oh my God.
Continue.
No, it was an interesting time in my life because I was sort of setting aside that old mindset. And I thought, well, I'm always open to being surprised and falling in love. Like, I want that. It just has to be at the right time. But whereas in the past I defaulted to, man, I got to hurry up, and I guess I can deal with not getting married until later in life, it switched to, no, I need to take my time as much as possible. And if the right person comes along and convinces me that this is the right time, then I'll be open to it.
Okay, so you're open if like the sparks fly. They're not gonna be like, no, I want to wait until I'm older.
Okay,
You're
that's what I
open.
was gonna ask.
Yeah,
is the
I was
age,
gonna ask
it's
that
the
too.
age-old Sex and the City question. So, Chris, there's an episode of Sex and the City where
The cab light on.
the cab light. Yeah.
Oh, the cab
So
light is my
basically,
favorite episode.
Charlotte says, like, why is it never me? Like, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm always going on dates. And
Miranda goes,
and
his light isn't on.
Yeah, his light isn't on. Like, we're just waiting, and then for them,
Once they turn their light on, that
they
they're
turn
open
the
for
light on.
business.
So
they
yeah,
find
pretty
the
much.
one.
It doesn't matter who the girl is. Whenever they turn their light on, like their cab light, and says, "Hey, I'm available," the next girl that gets in the cab is the one that they choose for life.
There you go.
So
That's
is
it.
the
Exactly.
question? So the question for me is. The question for you, pertaining to my life, is: Do you see yourself as being the guy that once your light turns on, you'll like probably end up marrying one of the serious relationship you have after that, or are you going to be a guy who just falls for the actual girl even if his light isn't on yet?
I think we always want to settle with the best person that we think we could ever get.
So if that girl comes before your light's on,
Then you take
you're
her.
willing.
I guess our question is like, you're saying, like you told Ashley in Mexico, like, when a guy's 40, that's pretty much when he's going to settle down with a 30-year-old. So we're asking you, are you going to wait till you're 40 and then the girl that you
Yeah.
meet when you're 40 is the one you're going to marry? Or if you meet a girl tomorrow and she gives you butterflies, are you going to go for it? Or what I've seen a lot of men do, convince themselves that she is not the one. Chad has actually
Yeah.
confessed to me that he's done this and tried to forget about her because he's scared and thinks that he's still got a lot of years on him.
No
But
way, that's so encouraging
Yeah.
to hear. That makes me feel.
that's not encouraging.
makes
This
me
is
feel
terrible.
great.
Let's hear his
Chris,
answer.
what do you think?
Well, I think if he's scared, that means that he hasn't reached that light bulb moment because he feels like he doesn't know himself enough. He feels like I'm still changing, and I don't know how I'm going to change. I know myself today, but how am I going to change in the future? And is that person still going to be happy with this type of
Are you sure?
person to
Wait, that
marry?
is really That's a
I don't
really
know.
insightful
I would
answer.
never think like that. I would think I'm scared because I'm just scared to fall in love.
Well,
And
we
to
think differently than that. I
just
think.
lose control of everything.
So what I'm saying is you're going to arrive at a point where you have this deep confidence and that fear goes away. And I think some people have this fear, I might never fall in love, and so they do find the next person that falls in love with them because they feel like I'm unlovable, I'll never be loved, this must be as good as it's going to get, and this is the best I am going to get. But I think that you have to push past that because people, time and time again, we have so many examples from our society of people who did that, and then they continued to grow and change, and then they became confident, and then they end up getting a divorce and say, oh, this is the new me in their mid-40s. And now all of a sudden, here we are 15 years, 16 years from older than you are, and now they feel young again, and that they have a new lease on life, and that they have this inner confidence, and now they really know what they're looking for. So why not just wait a few more years on this end and avoid the messiness? That's what I'm saying.
Face of confusion is amazing.
It's not confusion.
She disagrees.
I think I just fundamentally disagree. I guess I just can't fathom not knowing myself well enough now. Like, I know myself so well now. Not to say that I haven't become like a more confident, secure person over the last couple of years, but I don't think that I'm worried that I'm going to change so significantly that I no longer match with the person that I want to be
then
with.
maybe that brings up the age-old question.
Who's mature?
Like,
and
do men take longer? And to
Yeah.
everyone listening, we're not generalizing all men and all women. We're just saying this is what we think generally. It doesn't mean that all men and women are like this. But do we think, or Chris, do you think, and Ashley and Lauren, do you guys think that guys just take longer to find out who they are and what they want?
I was
And
talking
maybe
about
that's
this
why?
on Ben and my podcast today, and Ben was like flabbergasted at the fact that guys scientifically mature emotionally later, that they're like always 4 years behind us.
Of course he was.
He like was so confused by this. It's like,
He's never heard that
Ben,
statistic before.
that's everybody knows that. That's why girls are, quote, supposed to date up. But where was I going with this?
I don't know.
That's pretty much what you're
But
trying to say.
basically, but Ben, of course, is on the other side of this. He was telling me today that he's just, not interested in dating. Like, he just wants to find his wife.
Right.
And
I think Ben is an anomaly. Chris, what do you think?
But then
And
you also
Lauren.
don't want the guy that's just like, I'm looking for a wife, and then you're like the next girl there. That's
That's an interesting point
That's
that
what I
Lauren
think. I
brings
was like,
up.
just some
Like,
people just
he
want to
wants
get
to-
married to
No.
get married.
No, that's true.
no,
That
no.
was the guy that I remember, the one I lost my virginity to. It was like the next. He
Yeah.
just wanted
just
wanted a
wanted-
wife. He didn't care what her
really?
name was. She just had to be blonde and good in the kitchen.
You weren't blonde.
I know. That's why I'm not there.
You're definitely not good in the kitchen.
I know that again. Why I'm not there. Thanks, Ashley.
Well, before we continue with this conversation, I need to talk about Hubble contacts, which I recently got for a concert, because basically I can see pretty well during the day, like pretty darn well. But then the night comes and all of a sudden I can't read stop signs, and I definitely can't see a concert going on. So I got Hubble contact lenses because they, one, are very comfortable. Two, I'm not overpaying for them. And three, I'm not overwearing my contacts to save money. So what if I told you could be just like me and you can get a fresh pair of contact lenses every single day for less? You can get 60 contacts for $30. Do the math, you guys. That is $1 a day for your contact lenses. That's insane. This is half the price of other brands. You really can't beat this deal. Hubble is offering our listeners 2 weeks of free contacts. So go to HubbleContacts.com and get 20/20 vision for half the price. That is Hubble. That's HUBBLE contacts.com. They've been featured in Vogue, GQ, TechCrunch, Mashable, really reliable sources. Hubble sells directly to you, so they can offer contacts at half the price, which means that they are convenient because they get delivered right to your door, and you're not overpaying or overwearing. So it's easy on the eyes and it's easy on the wallet. So go to HubbleContacts.com, plug in our code GETIT, GETIT, and there you go. All right, let's move on. Let's get back to this topic.
So where do you
Right.
consider yourself, and what is your dating life like?
Do you not consider yourself mature?
I've actually surprised myself with how immature I am, because I really thought that I was very mature. I thought I knew a lot about a lot, maybe 5 years ago. And then just time and time again, I learned big lessons, and that's really scared me. It's shaken my confidence. Like, wow, how many big lessons do I have left to learn?
Interesting.
Could you tell us your last big lesson?
Please. I was just going to ask.
Or any of them. But last one would be great. Also, your hair is phenomenal. Are you guys staring at this wave?
Yeah, it is a nice wave.
His hair is so good because he stopped with that fade
You
shit.
really should start selling hair products on your Instagram.
To the
Chris.
next generation of bachelorette men, the whole like very done, like close cut on the side and like the hard part, that's out.
We
next
can't
season.
have another season like
It's
that.
flowing
No.
locks.
I will
next
say,
year.
as a former producer on The Bachelor, there was a lot of propecia in the mansion.
Oh my God, really?
Wait,
Yeah, guys.
alopecia?
Is that what it's
What does
called,
that mean? Is
Chris?
that
That's,
Propecia,
the,
yeah.
that's the pill you take
Pill
that takes your
hair
sex drive
doesn't
away.
fall out, and your sex drive
Yeah.
goes
Who
away.
is that's good.
We'll
I
talk about
support
that
all
later.
men.
No,
in taking
I want
those
you to have
pills.
a boner and be bald.
I
I'd
know,
rather-
I'd rather you. Well, obviously, I'm not one to speak, but as of my person right now that I am, I'd rather you have hair.
No shit.
As of the
I
last
won't
guy
want you
that
to have
I
a boner.
dated, as of the last guy that I dated, he should not have been on it because I feel like it affected his sex drive.
Wait,
Anyways,
the last guy you dated was on it?
yes.
Oh, well, guess what? I wouldn't want the guy to get a boner because I wouldn't want to bang him if he was bald.
The last guy I dated
You
wasn't
wouldn't get a
bald.
boner.
He had a full
I
head
would
of
not get
hair.
a lady
It's
boner.
preventative.
Yeah, preventative. I think they should all do it.
Okay.
I love it. Okay,
Okay,
so
sorry.
Chris, what's
Moving
your
on.
dating life like?
No. We have to hear about.
Oh yeah,
A
what was
big
your
life
last
moment.
thing?
Big life
And then I
moment.
want to know what your dating life is like now.
Well, there was a time a few years ago where I dated my first crazy girl. And I had never dated a crazy girl before. But
Why do you say my first crazy girl? Like there's a bunch out there.
I'm saying that it was rare. It's not something that I ever ran into before.
You say first as if there's been multiples.
No, there hasn't, because
Okay.
that person taught me such a big lesson that I know the signs now. I think I do.
Wait,
Maybe there's another
is there
one coming.
anyone at this table that's a crazy girl?
No, definitely not. This
He
person.
actually thinks that I was totally screwed and that like a lot of my dimension wasn't showed on the show.
Okay, keep going, Chris.
Yeah, I think that Ashley is way more well-adjusted than people
Thank
think
you.
that she is. Like,
What a
that's
compliment.
that's a whole podcast right there.
What a compliment. Next week
So,
on the I Don't Get It
and then I
podcast.
also I dated a girl that was like one of those on paper people that's perfect, right? And like I imagined this person in my mind like for years, like, oh, if I could have this and like this, and then I dated this person, and there was something missing that I never even thought of.
That is so interesting.
Which was what?
The X Factor.
Oh, the X Factor. The Zaza Zoo, if we were talking about Sex in the City.
Season 3, episode 5. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Chris is on
And
mute.
it's funny because that used to sound to me like something that people would say that's just kind of stupid and made up and it may be a lame excuse, but now I totally am on board with that.
Right.
The X factor. And I think there's just you have to connect with them on their energy level. Like you have to have linked passion or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
100% agree
Yeah.
with
It's
that.
weird. It's
absolutely.
like you literally sit down. I don't believe in love first sight, but I believe in like connection at first meet.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's literally like boom or not there.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
we all know. We've talked about this a zillion times.
Yeah.
You need the spark.
I
immediately.
need,
I need
that.
I
Like,
think we all
that
do.
hype feeling.
Lauren
Lauren doesn't.
It could grow. Lauren's a person that
I am a unique
grow
bird.
Lauren she has very unique circumstances.
But wait, I want to go back to the crazy girl thing.
Yeah.
What was the first sign of the crazy girl?
Yeah, what are signs of being a crazy girl even?
Everything was my fault.
Oh.
And she got a boyfriend. Maybe I should do this.
She was suspicious of me even when I hung out with my guy friends, even if it like she already knew them.
Like suspicious that you were cheating?
It was like a level of possessiveness to the degree that she was even jealous when I hung out with my guy friends, and there was no threat or chance of
Lauren, you've dated some
women.
people who have been crazy boys.
Yeah,
if
I've had
you're
crazy
going by
boys.
the same
That's
criteria.
interesting.
Sorry, what was I saying? It was a question about. Oh wait, so you actually dated this girl? Like it was an exclusive
Dated.
relationship?
Yeah, for like
For how long?
4 months.
Oh, okay.
So you definitely got to know her.
And I mean, I found myself apologizing, and it got to the point where I realized, wait, there is nothing for me to be sorry for.
But was the X Factor there?
Done nothing wrong. You know, there was an X factor there. I think that's really on paper wasn't so much,
Right. That's why you hold on.
and that
Because it's
makes
there.
you blind to it.
Right.
So it has to be both.
I
and I
completely
think that
agree.
there are people who don't know that, and they get wrapped up in the X factor, and they blind themselves, and they get married, especially if they're in a certain phase of life, And then they deal with all these issues that come out, and they deal with them over years, or they don't deal with them, and then years and years later they come out, and then bad stuff happens. So
that's interesting.
It is interesting.
So my question,
but like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I feel like that's a huge lesson. Is that like you? But I guess your lesson here is that you really need to get to know somebody deeply, and that you need to have it on both paper and the X Factor. So that's what you learned here in this.
Yeah, that's
in the warning signs of a crazy girlfriend,
right? And that he needs. So, do you feel like you have a lot of time for more life lessons, like, or do you? When do you think you're going to be like completely Chris Strandburg?
Well, going back to my earlier point about lifespan.
Oh,
so when you picture an 80-year-old, you think of somebody who probably doesn't get out much, who doesn't look like how you want to look. But you got to realize, with medicine advancing, the fact that our nutrition is so good, the fact that our life is just much easier.
Our nutrition is good because I'm concerned.
You have the ability to be.
You live in Los
eat
Angeles,
healthily.
Ashley. The street signs are organic.
So I should
Ashley
be
looks
hitting
amazing
up
in person, guys, just so you know.
So what does that mean?
So what it means is, what's happening is we're aging much slower. We don't have the diseases that our bodies have to fight off on a regular basis.
We have Botox.
And we have Botox. And I'm telling you guys, this is another level from this podcast. But what's going to happen in medicine over the next 10 to 15 years is going to make us very young for very long. Oh. So my question is,
but do you guys like
do you really
that?
want to be married to the same person for 70 years? Because God forbid you pick somebody at 30 and then you live to 100 and you're like, all right, I've had enough. So what if you waited until 50 and you're still very vibrant for a solid 45 years with that person?
Did you say 50?
Do you know how scrunched my forehead is for
It's
a
so
Botox
scrunched,
forehead
guys.
right now?
Because you're thinking you don't know if you want to
No,
be married.
because I'm like, I don't know where this is going. I don't like it.
I mean, it's Chris. It's his opinion.
Yeah, I know. It's all.
I totally understand your opinion.
Yeah, and I get it. This doesn't not make sense. It's just terrifying.
And I'm using a bit.
Absolutely,
I'm using
yes.
kind of a crazy example.
Yeah.
But just think about it. I mean, really, that's not absolutely insane if you spend 50 years with somebody, if you were active and you had your wits about you, right? So we're not we're not old at 40 and dying at 65 anymore. Another thing, which is a huge problem, I think, that we're going to have to face, are the millennials. No, that's not a problem.
Okay.
I really
do you
think
mean?
that's like you've seen with Caitlin and Whitney, right? They're freezing their eggs. So that's kind of the first step to that is increased fertility for women. I think
not
that's
the
gonna,
best to carry in your 40s either, though.
It's going to continue to improve. I think the big...
It's so artificial. God didn't intend this.
God made the materials to be able to do that.
Well, then why can't God say, I bless you all with being fertile until you're 50? Without science.
That's definitely another podcast, too.
Yeah,
on the religious channel.
No, but seriously, isn't it crazy that we can continue to live further, but that fertility span isn't getting longer?
I agree, and I think a little bit to our argument, I think that's why men are able to put it off longer right now.
Right.
Because we don't have, there's an emotional biological clock and then there's a physical biological clock. So women and men may have similar emotional biological clocks, but women have the physical biological clock. That's much harder to push back right now.
So that segues into my next question, and your answer could very well be, that's not my problem, Naz. But what happens to all of us women then that are, I'm 27, like Ashley's getting up there in the 30s. No,
I'm 29.
She's 29. She's going to turn 30 soon. So
soon as in March.
do we just miss the boat then?
That's what I'm saying.
Because the guys
date older guys. You're dating older guys.
I know, but he's saying that the guys that I'm dating that hasn't worked out with, that were like 36, 37, that they're going to wait till they're 40 and marry like a 30-year-old.
Oh, I'm just saying that there's there's a screwed over generation in this craziness. There's a screwed over generation, and that would be millennial girls, because the 40-year-olds that you're referring to they're already probably married. They're done. And then the guys below us and the guys of our age and the guys in their middle 30s, they're all like mid 30s. They're all apparently not interested. So help us.
So
That's not my problem.
You don't.
It's really not your problem, and that's the sad part about it. But I'll let you answer.
That's not my answer. there are going to be some women who are going to marry men who have been married before. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's okay for them because maybe they actually have the quality in the person that wouldn't have been there the first go around. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that you have to like date 10 years above, but I'm saying that your odds are going to be better. You can find a guy who's like a Tanner who is there, but it's more rare. And
I'm such a gem, just like Jade. Somebody should want to wife me up.
you are. You just haven't found your Tanner yet.
But also,
You got to go to the Midwest.
What you're saying was just making me think of Evan. Like, look at Carly. Carly in a way has inherited kids that aren't hers
Oh,
from
absolutely.
a previous
Evan is
person.
a prime example
and
of
it does work out for people.
Evan's 34. He's by
But he
no
is young.
stretch.
Right, but I'm just
old.
using the example of
Right.
someone who's, kind of
Right.
lived their life with another woman previously.
Yeah.
and
Evan
now-
started really early. Like, he met his first wife at like 19
So
or 20,
should we
right?
just move to Nashville? Is your place in Nashville still open? Should we just switch?
Guys, Nashville's the happiest place on earth, especially for Bachelor Nation. Like, we should all just move out there.
lives there now, so I don't know how.
Who does?
Yeah, Lee. Everybody's moving out now.
Oh my God. Get out of there.
We're coming to LA.
Yeah.
I want to talk about social media
Okay.
because
Well,
I
we'd
think
love to
this
hear.
I think this is the worst part about
Oh,
what's
yeah.
changing.
So do we.
Absolutely.
And let me just I'm not a good storyteller, but let me try to paint a picture, okay? So you know, 100 years ago, like cities and travel were so different, and we didn't have TV. We didn't know like who was in the next state. We had kind of these small communities. And the neighbor girl, if she was like pretty cute, like that's the cutest girl I've ever seen that's not related to me. So
Girl
that's
next
great.
door.
So
That's where the term probably came from.
yeah, exactly. And in that person's mind, well, shoot, I'm 18 now. I'm going to die at 65. I've got this pretty cute girl. She seems to like me. I've never seen a cuter girl in my life. I think this is the best I'm ever going to get. Let's lock it down. And that made sense. Instagram,
You see it all.
Horrible.
You see all those beauties out
you
there.
have every option in the
Yeah.
entire world available to you.
Well, available to you
And you
in your
also
own
see-
mind.
In your own mind.
And not reality.
Right.
You
Not at
also
all.
see their Photoshop bodies all the time, so you think like, I'm going to get my own Photoshop
Right.
booty, and then you see all these girls like, oh wait, they have dimples. And it's like, yeah, that's what you're gonna get.
And we've talked about this before in the podcast, obviously, but I'm glad you're bringing it up because obviously dating apps, you're just swiping. So now that we have you, a male perspective sitting here, do guys actually think like, oh, I can find a better girl tomorrow? Like, do you think second dates are becoming less and less frequent? Because I feel like a couple years ago, I would go on a lot of second dates, and I find myself more going on a lot of just first dates, and that's really weird to me.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I'm fucking a gem too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean,
When was the last time you took a girl on a second date?
I
It's a good question.
I took a girl on a second date. I've gone on 2 second dates in the last 5 months. But I also knew at the time that I was moving to LA, and I told these girls about that. So I'm like, if it's like incredible chemistry,
Yeah.
then But if not, then so. But in LA, I've had no first dates actually. But what I'll say, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
Nothing. Just the elephant in the room. Keep going.
At least I'm honest about it.
What the fuck was that?
What?
That was said with attitude. Continue.
No, I'm not afraid to admit that. I mean, I'm starting a dental practice here, and lots of changes. And shoot, quality matters. So, I mean, I definitely want to be intentional about the people that I date. Back to your point, I think that there's probably a delusion in guys that, they think that they're going to get maybe better, and maybe that's why you haven't had a lot of second dates. There's a lot of pressure and tension happening right now because of social media and the dating world, I think. It's going to get better. It always does. This is a new thing. Like, we're not really sure what to do with it. But people are going to get sick of it and kind of adjust. I promise you.
They're gonna crave intimacy.
I kind of agree with that. Do you think that?
I hope so. Yeah,
hope
I'm
so,
hopeful.
too.
I'm just having this conversation over and over again with people, and I feel like it's really getting to people that they're not really communicating with anyone. They're just
I
looking.
feel like everybody agrees with that, and everybody wants to change it, but it's just a matter of actually changing.
But no, yeah, it's like
but
no
as long
one's
as they're
taking
acknowledging the fact that it's
Yeah.
a problem,
it's a step
that's
in the
good.
right
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, I literally was driving the other day and I thought about opening like a salon or something where they take your phone away and like people have to talk to each other. And I bet you, and I literally thought to myself that people would actually want to do this.
Probably.
Because people always say, I love when I don't have my phone.
Yeah.
That was like when we went to the wedding. I wanted them to
But
take our
don't you
phones
get
away.
so much more stressed out when you receive your phone back and have to deal with everything on there?
I do get anxiety, but more because I'm OCD and I hate the numbers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's your problem.
Wait, you hit the numbers on what?
Like how many texts and calls.
Oh,
and
yeah, I don't like that either.
emails.
Yeah.
I like to keep up, but
For people who, you know, one of the best parts about being in the Bachelor world is being completely connected to the people that you're with and not having your mind elsewhere.
oh, absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's
spoke
literally
so highly of this.
It's a better way to meet someone these days.
Oh, yeah,
than
it really
is on a
is.
dating app because you walk out of a limo, you don't know who they are, what their name is, where they're from, how much money they make.
This conversation is literally riveting, but before we continue with it, we need to take a moment for our sponsor, FabFitFun. You've seen all the Bachelor girls loving on FabFitFun, and it's not just a sponsored thing. It's because we actually really enjoyed these boxes. Ask anyone. Ask Carly, ask Jade. It's a seasonal box, so you get 4 each year, and it comes with full-size products. And the box itself is usually worth about $200, but you can get it for $39.99 when you use our code GETIT. That is a $10 off code, and it is GETIT. It's GETIT. It's one word. And then all you have to do is go to fabfitfun.com, and you can get this amazing deal. You guys, it's such a deal. And you will always find things in the box that you're going to use basically for the rest of your life. So last season, spring season, there was an exfoliant. I was obsessed with it. It completely replaced the other exfoliant I've been using for over a year.
And there was a sunscreen you loved
And
too,
now
right?
this summer box is the sunscreen, and you guys, it's silky. And I know this sounds crazy, but most sunscreen, like, it'll turn my skin purple or like blue, and Lauren knows this.
Yeah.
Like, there have been times where I've gone out and like
weird.
think I'm looking like okay without makeup,
and
then
you
I
look
come
like
home.
Edward Scissorhands when you get the makeover.
Like Edward Scissorhands. So I found this amazing sunscreen in the new FabFitFun box, and it doesn't turn my face any color except just porcelain soft. It's crazy. So go to fabfitfun.com, use our $10 off code GETIT, GETIT, and you can be just like your favorite Bachelor girl.
So what is your dating life like in LA now? You haven't been on a date with anyone.
You know, LA is so different than Nashville. Nashville, there's like one spot for this, one spot for that. And so if you want to meet a certain type of person, there's like one spot, right? So it's kind of easy to understand. And you can meet everybody in the city in the course of, you know, a few years. You have your social network there.
Right.
LA is very transient. It's huge. And there's so many different like subcultures. So I don't even know where to begin.
Right.
I mean, it's really overwhelming. And, you know, I've heard everybody has, you know, certain opinions about the people in LA. And the reality is there's all types of people here. And that's what makes it awesome. But I guarantee that I'm going to learn new things by dating in a totally different city with people who have, you know, different expectations of their life, I think, than what I encountered in Nashville up to this point.
With someone who has the mentality that I'm going to like put this off for a while, is there really any intention of seeking out a girlfriend and even going on first dates?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to learn more stuff about myself. And these things that I'm alluding to, I'm not going to learn until I get intimate with somebody else, until I really get to know somebody else. I haven't had a long-term relationship in a few years. The longest-term relationship I've had in the last 5 years was only about 8 months. So to me, that's not that long because I've had two-year relationships before too, and you just learn so much there.
Right.
I'm not, if I find somebody where I really feel like, wow, there's so much substance here, the way I'm looking at it is this could be an awesome connection with somebody, but I don't have fear that if this doesn't work out, that that's a big problem for me.
That
because
must be nice.
I have such a later goal. And I know that on the other side of it, most likely I'm going to take away some good lessons that help me the next time around.
I
Do you
feel
think
like
it's
that's
fair
the
to the girl,
disconnect.
though?
I feel like that's the disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Ashley is
Yeah.
like,
She
because
thinks-
we go in like, oh my God, I could be married to this guy. He is
And he's
literally
just over there
husband
trying to learn
material,
lessons.
and and you're just a chapter in the textbook.
Yeah.
Homegirl, keep it moving.
I think he's having a realization right now.
I think it's easy to jump to those conclusions. What the science tells us is that men actually fall in love faster than women do.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'd be really careful.
Just say it, Chris. I'm a big girl.
Don't use that as an excuse.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just men in general these days. No, it just wasn't the one for you.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't think like, oh, Cupcake's out there. He's just just checking boxes, and he just wants to go through as many as he can. That's not that's superficial, and that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm just saying is it's a totally different mindset. It's one of inner peace that there's no pressure here. If I'm completely wowed and I arrive at that light bulb moment, then that's amazing. But I'm not going to I think it's better because I'm going to be I have been very upfront with any girl that,
Which is amazing.
I've talked to about this stuff.
terrific.
I'm not afraid at all.
Yeah.
And I feel like they feel relief.
Oh, for sure.
Like, there's
yeah.
no
100%.
weird pressure.
Yeah.
And
No, you're
I
absolutely
guess
right.
when it comes
So-
to it, it's all about the honesty factor.
open
Because
communication.
please don't say bullshit. Don't say if we're a couple someday soon, or or I can't wait to see you then, and I want you to meet my family, and blah blah blah. Then the girl has these expectations that she builds up. And if you don't mean it in the moment, don't say anything
gonna make you
that
feel good.
she can think about in hindsight.
Yeah, it's going to make you feel good for the 10 minutes when he's saying it, but when he doesn't follow through, it's going to hurt a billion times worse.
Right. And I think we nailed it. Like Chris is right. Everyone's just looking for the X factor. It's not men these days or women these days. It's just finding the X factor. But Ashley's right too, in the sense where I feel like women are just not, and men aren't meeting expectations.
I agree.
But my question to you, Chris, is do you feel like your group of guy friends has any effect on where you are with your life? Because my friend has a boyfriend who she's been dating for a couple of years now, and he never thought about she was so annoyed. She's like, we need to start talking about marriage or whatever. Mm-hmm. And his best friend just proposed. And then suddenly, the light got lit under his ass, and he was like, "Oh, we need to start talking about marriage." So, how much does your group of guy friends affect when you want to settle down and when you want to commit?
it affects you a lot. Totally, it totally does. The people who are your friends probably affect how you think more than you affect how you think, in a lot of ways. And people have to be aware of that. So you have to choose who you hang out with carefully. So I've kind of looked, and we've had discussions. Me and my friends have had discussions about this stuff, and I've revisited kind of this philosophy because I don't want to miss the boat, But time and time again, it just makes sense to me. And the reality is, a lot of my friends who have been married already, not saying anything specifically to any one of them, but just statistically, it shows that a good number of their marriages are not going to work out.
He's
And that
not
freaks me
lying. He's not lying, and I think that's what freaks guys out, because that's what my big told me. He's like, I could settle down right now, but I have a bunch of friends that are married, and he's like, and it hasn't worked out, and they're not happy, so I don't want to do that.
Do you think location says a lot about when you'll get married too?
Yeah, Nashville, people probably get married sooner.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
And that goes back to who your friends are and, kind of like the expectations of those social groups. And there is kind of a contagious effect to proposals, I think.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Because friend groups are tight, one friend will be the bold one that leads the way, and then it'll at least get the others thinking about it. And I think it starts, and I'm trying not to be like all-knowing in this, because I'm very wrong all the time.
No, listen,
but I just think
none of this is factual. It's just, some of it is. That's on your tablet.
Excuse me, I've got my
But it's all
report.
just our point of views and life experiences. Everyone knows that.
I think it we have to be really aware of how much our friends affect us, because it's those little seeds that are planted that we don't realize were there. And we start comparing ourselves to our friends, and it's like, man, my best friend got married 2 years ago, and I'm still not married. All of a sudden, that's the reference point. Whereas if none of your best friends are married and none of them want to get married for several years, then you're never thinking, wow, I'm behind.
Which is a great lesson,
yeah.
to look at the guy or girl's friends.
That is a good point. But I think like our reference point, and I mean our as in me and Lauren and then Naz
Are you talking about
individually. No, it's like our moms and dads got married in their mid to early 20s, and then they're still in such a happy marriage 30-something.
Yeah,
years
I never
later.
think about divorces because I've never been around
never think
divorce.
about it either. And what's interesting is between me and Lauren, we don't even have divorce in our family.
Yeah.
None.
Bubby was divorced.
Bubby, our grandmother, was divorced before
None. Bubby was divorced.
Bubby was divorced prior to meeting our grandfather and the father of our father.
Right. So it's like
So
such
we
a,
didn't-
it's such a foreign concept to you guys.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
No, that makes sense.
And that's so great.
Yeah.
And
But it's also like shitty too.
Yeah.
In a way, to have too much good, right?
What's
because
also-
then you go out in the real world and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
you're just going to have to be careful about having the right expectation for you.
Maybe it was because of like the socioeconomic area that we lived in, but like our friends' parents are all together too. So I don't know. I just not surrounded by it at all, even though statistically through the country that is not a good representation.
Maybe, ask
Maybe we live in Pleasantville.
ask your dad, how old is he when he got his first job, and when did he start dating, and try to understand like how mature of a young man he was, and that might help you compare how mature is this 30-year-old that still seems like a kid.
Exactly. That was
That
like
is so
13.
true.
Well, Dad started dating when he got out of high school because he was
my
a
dad was a little
nerd.
delayed.
My dad entered the Air Force at 18. He was
Yeah.
in 4 branches of the military. Like he was like,
Yeah.
he was a man at like 17.
Yep.
So that's so true.
And that will age you.
Yeah.
Going and really facing the real world.
Right.
I mean, the age of, men and women, but young men moving out for the first time is steadily rising, and in Europe, from what I understand, it's not uncommon to be 30 years old and living with your parents. And, Europe is traditionally like a few years ahead of us culturally.
Right,
We can kind of look at them. And so it's like, okay, so maybe 30 is the new 18. Not saying that that's what it is, but think about it.
But like,
I
again,
would love
It's a
that.
different
Definitely a couple years.
trajectory.
well, that's
Dumb.
Lauren's life.
Yeah,
That's
I
her
know,
trajectory.
seriously.
But like when did a man have to go out, face the real world, and
You'd
not
never
be taken care of?
Yeah, you'd never move back after college back in our parents' days.
Yeah.
Well, maybe war isn't so bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I
New
hope,
headline
I
tomorrow.
hope everyone knows I'm sarcastic. Yeah. Like, I'm kidding.
Totally.
Kind of.
Well, man, I think we covered so much
Chris,
ground.
you
This
are
is
amazing.
Really
I
entertaining.
didn't even realize that we were doing that for 44 minutes.
Well, 'cause
Oh, wow, really?
it's not that hard to look at, you
Yeah.
know? Chris, you were amazing.
Do you
Or
have anything
terrific.
else you'd like to add before we leave?
I think this would be a cool conversation to continue with other people.
I
Maybe
think
get
so.
some other male perspectives. Somebody might totally put me to shame in terms, but I really feel like I know what I'm talking about.
You seem like you do.
So-
Well, we're going to call Tanner, so we're going to see
No,
what
so
he
I was
says.
thinking
Yeah.
that maybe we can make this a series and we can call Tanner next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
And then we'll call Ben.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, I guess my kind of
And then we'll
closing...
call someone that's never been on
Do you
the
have
show.
any divorced friends?
A couple things to close, hopefully on a higher note.
Okay.
Since the 1980s, divorce rates have been dropping.
As in, they've been getting better.
Yes, it's been getting better. People have not been getting divorced as
So
much.
it's no longer 50% of the country gets
No.
divorced?
That's a huge wives'
it's
tale in the
because
first
people are
place.
getting married older.
No. The actual statistic is if you are 25 and older and college educated when you get married, your success rate is so much higher. That's
true.
It's the other
Right.
ones that pull the rate down.
That makes sense.
But
But
the-
is it still 50-50, though?
No, it's not.
countrywide? What
it's
is it?
less. That's one statistic I don't have here. Let me get back to you.
Oh, not
but,
on the tablet today.
but it's getting better across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I'll say is I know it's frustrating out there for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
because you have these boys that you're dating who should be men. But hopefully I can give a little bit of insight into where we're coming from and how many of us haven't had, and I include myself in that, haven't had a chance to become men yet. And we're maturing at a slower rate in a lot of ways.
I love this podcast.
I feel like I do, but I think that you're a
learned-
man. It's just because you have a job and you're tall.
What makes you feel boy man now?
Propecia.
What makes me feel that way?
Yeah. Not full man yet.
Well, he said he has a lot of life lessons to learn still.
That's my perspective on it.
Okay.
Is
And I
there
think-
anything tangible that you don't have? Like,
Yeah.
aside from the life lesson, do you need to have a yacht? Do you need to have, like, your own penthouse? Is there a certain car that you want to drive before the wife shows up?
That's a perfect question, Naz. That's exactly what we've been missing from this podcast is how much does the career play into you settling down?
For me, I'll definitely say that it's a significant part.
But you're such a good dentist.
Like,
already.
Thank you. I've heard a lot about husband and wife teams kind of growing, building their lives together.
Bay and Jay.
That's,
Beyonce, Jay-Z.
of course.
Audrey J.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about our parents.
That's awesome. Of course, that's what I want. But, and maybe it's just me that I'm sort of OCD, but I have so many intrigues and passions and things that I want to discover. Like, I don't even know, yes, I'm a dentist, but what am I going to make of that? And not being settled down also allows me some flexibility to figure that out. And so then I can say, I'm ready for you,
Yeah.
you know, when that person comes
If you
along.
want to build houses in Cambodia, you can just go.
And I will say that the internet and social media has influenced me because I'm seeing what other people just in general out there are doing with their lives. And I say, hey, that's interesting to me. Maybe I can do that too.
Right.
And so it's it's good and bad. I think you just have to be aware of what's going on. And then you have to be like, try not to get sucked into any extreme.
That's good. I like that because I feel like we're in this age now, which I love, where people have multiple careers. Like, you know, my mom's always like, you can't leave this job, you know, like you got, and I'm like, Mom, no one works at like the coffee shop for like 30 years anymore. Like no one's making shoes for 20 years anymore. Like I leave jobs every 2 years actually. And I think it's awesome that you can like reinvent yourself. However, if you're in that mindset, it's like, when is the end all be all? Because you can change your career forever. You could,
Great point.
You could be a cafeteria woman when you're 80. Like that could be my last career.
That would be cute.
That would be cute. I don't like hairnets.
I think you'd be great at that.
Thanks.
And unfortunately, I have to go back to that light bulb thing, to that little bit of intangible. I think I'm much closer than I've, ever been, for sure. I see the progress that I've made when I look back, and I know so much more about myself. I don't feel like this is going to be like a forever thing. When you're in the moment, like talking to me now, it seems like this is never going to happen. But if it happens at 35 and I've got a bunch of kids at 37, you're like, nah, Chris made it. He was just a few years behind, So in the moment, it's frustrating, and it seems like it might never happen. But I'm just saying, you got to just look at it maybe from a different timeline and know that things are still falling into place normally.
That's it. There's a men timeline and a woman timeline.
We're going to stop right there because you ended on such a profound note. And yes, somewhere in the middle, I think the female and the male will catch up to each other, those timelines.
You guys are going to be fine, I promise.
Well, Chris, thank you for joining us. This was so enlightening.
I loved it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime.
You're
So
terrific.
profound.
Let's do it again.
Thank
Very
you.
insightful.
Bye.
Podcast.